We are here, Rock N Pod 2023, Nashville, Tennessee. Danny Meyers along with Lon Fong and the What's Hot in the Strip Clubs podcast on Pantheon Podcast
I love that this exists.
Network.
I'm so excited.
So you've been to a strip club or two in your day?
Introduce you first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tyson Leslie, ladies and gentlemen, from
hi.
Vixen, the band.
Sorry, I just started talking for no reason.
Go ahead.
So, have you been to a strip club in your life?
A few times. I've dated a few of them, and I worked at one in Kansas City a long time ago.
Industry guy.
Yeah.
It was one of my. It's one of those things, though. I don't know how much I can or can't say on here, but
You
like
can say anything.
it's, when you're in your 20s and you have this new job, working around naked people all the time, you're
Beautiful
extremely
naked people.
excited at first, and then after a while, you're like desensitized to everything. You're like, why does my penis not work anymore?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, because you see penises and all that every day.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, some in the one that I was at, they had the porno booth up. You're renting movies out to
really?
creepy old dudes and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's mopping up the rooms. Good times. Yeah. So that's kind of how you have to start out in that club, and then and then eventually you get to move up to the part where you basically sit at a soda fountain and fill up drinks for the waitresses.
So it's
and
a
that's
BYOB.
like, so you're moving yourself up. You're like, okay, cool. Because in Kansas City, the way it worked, I don't know if that's that way anymore. This was many years ago.
Sure.
If it was full nude, then
No liquor.
they couldn't serve alcohol. And then
A lot of states.
Right. Yeah. So and then the other way, it was like if they
Topless
had
with
alcohol, they
pasties.
had the pasties and
Yeah.
the whatever. And so so I was on the Missouri side, and it was the full nude business and whatever. And I remember my third or fourth day there, I'm like watching 4 completely naked women decorating a Christmas tree. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I don't know what's happening. And I had no chance with any of them because I was just terrified of women at the time. And I was just like, I don't know. So the closest I ever got to any action was putting like lotion on one of the girls' backs before she did like one of those like private show things. I was like, okay, well, this is about as close as I'm probably going to get. So
Be glad, because when you get a little bit further, the next step is, will you check and see
Chlamydia?
if you can see my tampon
Yeah,
string?
well,
my string.
yeah, good times.
Yeah. So we saw you play last night. First of all, you are a multi-instrument talented guy. We saw you play bass. We saw you play guitar, keyboards. I imagine you can drum. You were singing great backups. You were a talented motherfucker.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah, how did you get
I
into-
actually had to give away my drum song and my vocal songs because I woke up
Aw.
with no voice, and I was like,
What were you
well,
gonna
I better.
sing? Let us know.
I was singing War Pigs, and then I was going to sing the last song, which is a song called "If I Were a Killer" by a band called Galactic Cowboys.
Yes.
And I was like, man, there's no way I'm going to be able to sing this today. So I called up my buddy John. I was like, hey, can you pull these songs today? He's like, yeah. And he's great. He did great.
Yeah,
So.
he killed it. He killed it for sure. So how did you end up in Vixen? Because originally that was an all-girl band.
Yeah, and
And you're not a girl, to be clear, everyone. This is not a girl.
I have a low voice. So yeah, Vixen has always been an all-female band, but I've always had a male keyboard player for some reason that I was a little escapes me. And back in the old days, in the '80s, the keyboard player was not on
Off
stage.
Got
So
it.
he was either behind, I don't know, or like in a glass tube. Who knows? I don't know. But
the
fortunately,
stage.
these days I get to play on stage. I'm just kind of off to the side. I'm like paying no attention to the Asian
Right.
guy in the corner. So that's kind of my role. But it's a really great band to work with, and it's it's fun to work with a bunch of women that used to hang on my wall when I was a kid.
Right,
and stuff.
talented
So
and
that's
beautiful
pretty
ladies.
awesome. Yeah.
Talented, beautiful ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah, they played. They actually were the host band in Vegas for one of our exotic dancer publications. I don't know if you were.
That would have been way before me. I
That
would
would have
imagine.
been like 2014, 15.
Okay.
So that way
I joined
before
in
you.
17.
Okay, but yeah, unbelievable band, and that was just an unbelievable. But yeah, last night I'm watching you. So first of all, I'm saying, bass, man, this dude is a hell of a bass player.
Oh,
and
thanks.
it's like, man,
Yeah, we're playing Mr. Big, so you got to play
Sheehan,
some
baby.
stuff.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the next thing I saw, now he's on this. Oh, he's on a 6-string here today. Then
Right.
you do a keyboard, you're singing and everything. What would you say is your main instrument?
Piano is when I started, for sure. I started, playing classical music when I was little. And then I won a talent contest in Greeley, Colorado, where I was living at the time. And with that $100 I got from that contest, I bought my first electric guitar at a pawn shop and taught myself how to play guitar. And then inevitably, like later on in my life, like I was in a band in Kansas City where I was living there at the time, and our bass player quit. And so I moved from keys to bass, and I played bass for a little while in that band. And so it's that kind of evolution. And then when I was working in piano bars, like I work in dueling piano bars a lot. So I started Howl at the Moon there in Kansas City. Yeah. And all those, you have to play every instrument. So so you're playing drums 5 nights a week, and you get better at it because you don't really have a choice. Yeah. And I've always been a big a drum nerd. Like I love like really complex drummers, guys like Vinnie Colaiuta and and obviously like Neil Peart and those kind of the nerdy stuff. And that I've always really honed in on the complex musicians and stuff like that. That's kind of my thing. I like it all, but
well, your classical background, and you guys are very technical. Now, I'm half Chinese. What?
Vietnamese for me.
Were you born and raised here?
I was born in Vietnam.
Okay.
In '74, and then in '75, there was basically this rescue mission called Operation Baby Lift, where they took all the orphan kids from over there and brought them over to the States in a handful of large planes, 747s or whatever they were, like the old Pan Am days and stuff. And West Coast, East Coast, and the Midwest. I ended up in the Midwest.
Wow.
And was adopted by a Caucasian family in Greeley, Colorado at the time.
Right.
And then we moved to Kansas City because my dad got a job, and I spent most of my years musically coming up in Kansas City. And then once I kind of did everything I ever wanted to do there and played with all my heroes and did all the stuff, I was burned out. I didn't know where to go. And so a friend of mine here in Nashville, who I hadn't seen in years, and just called me out of the blue. And he had a project he thought I would work for. He knew me as a bass player. It was a country project. But it just didn't, it wasn't, it was $100 a gig, and I was 40 years old. I'm like, dude, I can't afford to go out and do that anymore. Like, I can't do it. What else you got? And he was like, well, what do you want to do? I want to be doing what he plays for Jason Aldean. He's a drummer.
Yeah.
So, I was like, well, I want to be doing what you're doing before I get too old and age out of all this, And he's like, well, if you want to do all that stuff, you need to be present to win. You need to move here to Nashville, where you can go take a meeting or go to a lunch with somebody or go to a audition or whatever it is without having to be like, hold on, let me book a flight. So essentially, I moved here in June or July of 2015, and then 2 months later, I was jumping on a tour bus playing country music with Tracy Lawrence.
Wow, that is crazy.
I'd never heard him in my life at that point because when Tracy was popular, I was listening to Alice in Chains and Tool and stuff like that. So I didn't know any of his stuff. So I'm sitting in an apartment just cramming for, I had about a week and a half to learn 38 songs.
Wow.
And it just cramming, learning as much as I can really quickly. And then I realized that, we went out, I played with him for about a month and a half and realized I suck at country music. And we were both just like mutually like, it's cool.
Plus the Asian guy on stage got to look a little different.
Well, I did look, I'm out playing country music and I'm wearing a Steel Panther shirt and shit, I'm like not even fitting in it at all. But he didn't care. He didn't care what we looked like at that point.
Good.
He's just like, please don't suck and, show up. Yeah. But he was great, and his camp is great. The players are fantastic, and we parted amicably. It just didn't. Vixen's a much better fit. Yeah. That's what I grew up on listening to and playing.
So, first of all, you look like you're 25, 30 years old. Right. That's the Asian genes, my brother.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I act that way as well.
Yeah, I've seen it on stage. You're a great showman too. And again, learning that many songs speaks to your musicianship. Your level of musicianship is ridiculous.
Oh, thanks.
For real, man. And watching you play last time, we kept honestly, you were one of the standout performers.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, without a doubt.
I think everyone talking too was like, man, this kid is all over the place.
Right.
We all thought you were much younger, so calling you a kid,
right.
Sorry, but we all figured you're like 25, 30 years old.
Yeah, I'm 48, man.
That's crazy, man. Have you been back to Vietnam, or do you have any interest?
Not yet. I never cared about that until the morning show DJ in Kansas City, one of them anyway. He went on he always does this exotic trip every year around Christmas time, and he went there, and he brought all these pictures back, and I'm like, okay, now I'm kind of curious to go. That's pretty awesome. I want to check it out. but I just haven't been able to afford the time or the money to do
Right.
it
I hear
yet.
you. I still have family in China, and I really want to go there. And that interest only came into my life in the last 5 to 10 years. Too. I'm 53. It's interesting as an Asian guy, and you kind of have a southern drawl now, which is kind of cool.
Right.
So,
Only when he talks about country bands. Did you notice
I
that?
did notice that. It
When
comes
you
and goes.
started
It
talking
comes and
country,
goes.
yeah, the country bands, you
It's
slipped
weird.
into that.
I don't like. Sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's just,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
just happens.
there.
You're a contradiction, and I love it. Because you're an Asian guy with long hair, and yet
Right.
he has kind of a drawl, and
Right.
playing the country band,
Wearing a
metal band.
Headbangers Ball
Yeah,
T-shirt,
it's
it's like, what the
fucking
hell's
dope,
the matter
man.
with this guy?
We're like walking UNs. I absolutely love it. So, any now that you've kind of lived out your dreams and you jam with all sorts of your people you look up to and
Yeah.
are fans of, any thoughts to go back to being an artist and creating your own stuff? Or
Well, I
start-
still do that from
Okay.
time to time. This is a subject came up last night actually with some other guys, actually the Bill of Coin guys that are over there,
Uh-huh.
whatever. Is like the biggest issue that I have right now with music is what do you do with it now? Because it's so everywhere all the time, in your phone, in your pocket, whatever.
Right.
And so I produced a country record for a guy. I think it was about 3 years ago now, and it's a really, really good record, really good.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what to do with it. Like it came out, I'm like, what do I do with it now?
Right.
Because I'm not tied in radio guys or some of these things that can, and I don't have the budgets like a label would have
Sure.
to really put the promotional, spin behind
Push,
all of
yeah.
it that it needs to happen. So it just kind of came out and then went dead in the waters, shortly after that, except for his fans, which he lives in Florida now.
Okay.
So I don't, and then I put a song out last year. It was the last thing I put out was on New Year's Day of last year. And it was me playing keys and rhythm guitar. And then Roxy from Vixen played drums on
Okay.
it. Billy Sheehan from Mr. Big played bass on it. And then Todd LaTorre from Queensryche, the current singer from
Yeah.
Queensryche, and I co-wrote it. So
Wow.
he sang lead on it and he wrote the melody.
What a lineup.
Yeah, and then we had a guy named Jimmy Bell who plays for Autograph
Oh, yeah.
currently. He played all the guitars on it, like the guitar leads and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And it's absolutely fantastic. And it came out really good.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest song I've ever had as far as my own personal releases
Yeah.
and stuff. And I got my ASCAP check in the mail
Yeah.
like about a month ago from last year's statement.
Yeah.
And I made $36
Oh.
on it
Well, what's the name of the song?
for an
Is it
entire
on
year.
Spotify?
It's on Spotify under Tyson Leslie, and it's called Burning Time.
Well, we gotta go. Hey,
Yeah.
everybody, go stream it.
Yeah, it's
I'm gonna
fun,
go
man.
stream it. Go check
I
it
wrote
out.
it actually for Vixen because they were wanting to something upbeat and
Yeah.
whatever to open. They wanted a new show opener
Got it.
song,
Got it.
and they passed on it because they thought it was too heavy. But in my head, I had it like there's only one way to rock. That was the
Yeah.
kind of vibe that I was
Great song,
going
by the way,
for.
Sammy Hagar.
But then I couldn't get it out of my head, so I couldn't write a melody except for that. That's what I
Right.
kept coming up with.
Right.
So that's what I hit up Todd. I was like, hey, can you come up with something that's not friggin' Sammy Hagar? Because I cannot. And so he came
can't
up with
afford the
something,
lawsuit.
and it was fantastic.
Awesome.
But then it became heavier as a result, and he kind of rearranged some things
Sure.
and sang over a different part. And I was
Got
like,
it.
this is so much better. And that's the best thing about working with other people is like they're going to come up with stuff you'll never ever think
For
of,
sure.
and then it becomes better as
Yeah.
a result. And it did
Absolutely, that's awesome. That's what I love about collaboration, whether it's podcasts or music. That's the best thing of it. Man.
for sure.
Well, hey man, what are your socials? What do you want to?
Man, I'm pretty easy to find. My name is Tyson Leslie, TysonLeslie. So think chicken and Leslie like the speaker, and you'll remember. And my name's weird enough that if you Google it, you can find it all. Like
That's awesome.
so, like Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff is literally just my first and last name. It's
Good.
and if
pretty
you need a
easy.
hired gun, man, sounds like he's the guy to talk to.
Yeah, man. I love doing it. I do a lot of recording at home. I recorded on the last Faster Pussycat single. Recorded on the last Enuff Z'Enuff record.
Okay.
And then the reason I said LA Guns is because I'm in the middle of working on some stuff for them, on some stuff that they're coming out
awesome.
with. So yeah.
I look forward to hearing all of it, man. Thanks for coming on the
Real,
show.
thanks
real
for having
quick
me.
question. I got
Yeah,
one
sure.
quick question. Let me get a word in here. No, you had mentioned Steel Panther earlier, right? And they did have a bass player change. Just for the record.
And I was in the running on that deal.
Were you really?
And we'd been talking, and those guys are friends. I love those guys.
Great guys.
But Joe, who got the gig, I mean, that dude's been subbing for him for 20 years.
Oh.
He's been working with them forever. That's the choice that they should have made, right?
Yeah.
And when they said, "Hey, Joe's coming out with us this summer," I was like, "Well, he's going to have that job."
I'm going to tell you.
And he deserves that.
Yeah,
job.
to replace Lexi Fox, Travis, it's just,
I love Travis. He's a sweetheart.
I've met him a couple of times. Super guy, and he's just been always. When he left the band, and then he got back, and then he left again. I think he said, "What was it? Sex rehab?" He said.
That was
Yeah. So, but I could see you up there with them.
Oh
with your
yeah,
energy,
yeah. I
man.
did a photo shoot and I did a video shoot and everything to send to them and everything. And essentially, I can't really. I know that I placed pretty high. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And we were talking quite a bit there last summer. I guess it was last summer.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I kind of figured out that at one point I'm like, okay, if they're not calling me back on this, then it's not happening because these shows start like in a few weeks.
Right.
And then he called me when I got back from a trip, and he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go with Joe." I was like, "Dude, that's totally fine. Like, I get it, and I still love you guys." And they'd always, they've always extended an invitation that if they're home or they're playing where I'm at, bring your keyboard and come out and play. So you know what?
Hell yeah.
But the problem is, every time they play here, I'm on the road every single time.
Yeah.
So
Love
It'll
the show.
happen.
oh
Love
yeah,
There you go.
I have no doubts.
Tyson, thank you so much for coming on. What's
thank
Up
you
the
guys
Strip
for
Clubs.
having me.
Thanks, man.
Strip clubs, yay!
There you go.
Industry legend.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, yeah.